This is a good segue because this is the difference, right? MLSE is a team that is a franchise, is a team ownership that always just plays to profit. They're completely fine with getting to a position of winning, but not actually winning, because that's
absolutely.
Also because of their revenue sharing is tied to the league, right? So what good is it for them to max out of being one of the last teams of the in the season, when you could have the fucking Panthers or the Predators or something, the Dallas Stars being the one who is going to front the bill for those revenue sharing from playoff profits and things like that. There's also like the psychological aspect, right? Like if you win, then it's similar like the Raptors. If you win, it ends up making the chase less valuable, because, we're going on 60 years almost. It'll be 58 years next year, right? Or no, it'll be 59 years next year. But there's like value in that spectacle. There's like
in that, yes. In like the narrative of the curse and various windows opening and closing and eyes on personnel moves and free agency. Yes, certainly. Yeah.
Yes. And then in contrast, right, like the Blue Jays, obviously Rogers is, a predatory telecom monopoly with massively like criminal high prices. Canada has some of the worst telephone wireless prices in the Western world, counting
famously so,
counting like places in the Caribbean. But also like right now, like I keep saying this to people when I'm watching sports, like right now, Rogers Sportsnet is producing like the highest level the most top tier sports broadcasting, like in all of the business in North America and probably even the world. And the reason that they're doing that is because they're pushing a gigantic brand that transcends sports. It transcends their fucking cable channel, right? It includes their, the satellite expansion that they're building that's going to compete with Starlink, with Elon Musk, that's going to extend connectivity to places that the Canadian government cannot extend emergency services to. They're also, in the same time that this is happening, they're building infrastructure in places in these remote areas, because they're selling it in this idea of like, you want to watch the Blue Jays, you want to watch the hockey game, right? And in that, we're seeing this expansion of the settler colonial project into the places that Canada couldn't go before, because one, there was no service, right? And two, there was no like reliable television, right? Because now like we're bringing the game, we're bringing the feeling of like Canada, the feeling of being a part of things, right, into areas that we couldn't before. And if you watch the game and everything with it that it's feeding you, along with the very egregious Ring of Fire advertisements, trying to sell an imminent mining prosperity to what is basically a captive national audience. And it's very just like, absolutely. But again, if you look at it through the angle of like, I wonder if Rogers has anything to do with the infrastructure that's going to be going up in the Ring of Fire. And what do you know? They do, because their satellite infrastructure is going to these places that they're, these uncharted places that, what it is indigenous territory, right?
There are millions of square kilometers without coverage across Canada. Places where it's hard to reach 911 or just check in. Introducing Rogers Satellite, a new satellite to mobile texting service that connects your phone in areas without cell service. So you can connect here, or even here. And now anyone on any provider can try it for free. Rogers Satellite. The sky's the limit.
As Canada faces economic uncertainty, we have a plan to secure our future, and it starts in the Ring of Fire. By developing the land in partnership with First Nations, we'll create economic growth for Indigenous communities. That's how we protect Ontario, made from the Ring of Fire.
And yeah, we're seeing it in through the lens of sports, right? And we kind of put like a positive gloss on it in the previous episode, where I'll put like a negative, but not too negative, just because it's just the way things are. But like Rogers has replaced the infrastructure of the state, and they're doing the same thing that the state used to do, like with their statecraft that Hockey Night in Canada was, and all of those things. But literally, Hockey Night in Canada was sold off to Rogers, and now Rogers is using that infrastructure, that sports as statecraft, to expand the settler colonial project that is Canada. Like it is the what is called the liberal order framework is expanding, except now it's not the state. It's fully neoliberalized. And that's what we're watching. That's what we just witnessed. And that's what we're celebrating, for better or worse, because in the end, it just makes Canada a stronger power internationally to compete as America fucking collapses.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. American jobs and growth are at stake.
You say your last goodnight while I
Were the Ring of Fire ads done by the government of Ontario?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I mean, this is just private gripe. Like, man, Doug Ford just fucking loves his TV spots. Like, it's just also like, this is more just soapbox griping, whatever. But like, anytime I come from, I mean, most ridings in Ontario are conservative now, but I come from a like dyed blue. I come from an automotive manufacturing town in St. Thomas. There was a Ford plant and other like heavy manufacturing around that. When the unions basically like were crippled in the early 90s, it went from red federally, orange provincially to blue. And it's been like locked blue ever since. Anyway, just my private gripe is like, I wish like with people who vote conservative or I'm like, when you see one of those ads, like, don't you ever ask, like, how much of your taxpayer money was used to pay for these Ring of Fire ads or the tariffs ads that shut down, the trade negotiations or et cetera? I'm like, that's astronomical. And you, like, want to talk about austerity, but they can spend money on fucking Super Bowl commercials or what have you? Anyway.
No, I agree. I will say, though, this is a good lesson in dualism for me, because like on one sense that fucking the thing that you're talking about with the Ring of Fire, like for one, there's a really good breakdown of it on a Narwhal article. Like for one, that commercial sells that project as if it's like an imminent project that is already like with the wheels in motion. Like the project literally remains speculative. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Also, several First Nations have like directly asked, like officially asked the Ontario government to get rid of the ads because they said that they were misleading and that they were quote unquote consent washing, which they are. And that it's this divide and conquer. It's the classic settler colonial divide and conquer tactic where they have one deal with a small isolated group, and then they say, we have a deal with everybody. It's fine. We're bringing opportunity to these areas that are desolate. And it just erases many unresolved treaty and consent issues that portray this like unanimous support that is just simply, it doesn't exist. Secondly, though, at the very same time, my friend sent me a text from his American friend that told me that after Game 5, when we won after Game 5, that when they were watching the Fox broadcast, as soon as the game ended, it played the Ford Reagan commercial.
The tariffs, yeah.
Yeah. And so like there's this sense where it's like, well, what's happening is we're through sports and through, because it's the same thing like what I talked about a couple of times with like the Four Nations Cup, and we're going to see it with the Olympics, and we're just seeing it more and more as like sports is being used. Canada is using sports to like unify the country that is massively divided because of being in the wake of America collapsing. And so as America collapses, Canada's role is to basically pacify the sick dog without getting hurt by it. And that commercial is a good example of that, because like it's kind of just like kicking them when they're down. And in the end, like that is a good thing. Like internationally, that is a good thing. What they're doing domestically is not a good thing.
Agreed. Like it's interesting how many purposes it serves. Like, I mean, what you were describing a little while back is like the privatization of like narrative and statecraft, which is a really interesting idea. Like it's cultural infrastructure and it's being privatized. And I mean, obviously I'm not crazy about this idea, but it's like, who is more equipped for it than Rogers, this like long-standing monopoly. Yep. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just like you said, like this life is like baseball. It's not fair. And like there's it's not like there's just uncomplicated benevolent things that happen in governance and society and power. It doesn't usually happen like that. It's usually just like a number of poison pills and bread and circuses all wrapped up in one another.
Yeah, but the uniqueness of Canada, right, is because Canada had this like structure that was created that has just like they keep turning the wheel and conditions keep changing, but like the engine is still the same. And so like, as you said, what better company than Rogers, but also what better party than the Liberal Party, because they've been doing it forever. And this is the thing. From the very beginning, Carney has been doing this. He rode the Edmonton Oilers into his election victory, and then he has never stopped repping the Oilers. The Liberals have been using sports as a means of statecraft. It's just that like Justin was literally like he was more of like an identitarian, more of like a moralist. Carney is more of like a general materialist. Like he understands as like an economist, and I'm not saying this is a good thing or bad thing. I'm just saying this is how his brain works. Like as somebody who's an economist, he understands like the nature of socioeconomics, right? So he understands like catch the tide while it's rising. And the best way to do that in Canada is through sports, because it's built into us. And this goes back to what you were talking about. In my opinion, I've thought about this a lot. My opinion, the reason that hockey fans in Canada and in general are so toxic is because hockey fans have this idea, and I think it's a part of how the game works, and it's also part of how we've generally all played hockey growing up, is like hockey, and this especially applies to international hockey, but like there's an element of hockey fandom where like you feel like you're on the bench with them. Like it is the most like we sport when you say our team, like than anything else, because of like the way that like, you can change on the fly. Like there's an element of it where it's just like next up, like how it is in basketball, how it is in baseball, how it is even in football, but it's like live play. And I think because of hockey coming out of Canada, and Canada being, very big, but also culturally very small that like we all feel together on the bench. I feel like that's also the reason why Team Canada always fucking wins, is because when you have the best hockey players together on a team and they think like that, you can't lose, because there's an element of like, it's like we replaced the act of going to war with going and playing a game. And because Canada was forged out of that, like we were literally forged out of war, which is why we had to replace it with sports. But it's also why hockey is like the core part of our culture, because no one wants a culture that's just based on war. And I think that's why the hockey fans are so toxic. And when I see it like seep into baseball fandom, I get so upset, because it's like baseball, you just have to live with it. Like you just have to let it wash over you and just say next year and then walk away. Like baseball is unfair. Ask the Seattle Mariners. Like it's a very unfair sport. Yeah.
Funny you say that too, because like it's also better than war, because war is largely boring. Like it's mostly long periods of hanging out in fucking trenches or what have you, and then short bursts of violence and horror. But
and where like the narrative is outward, right? Like the narrative for war is usually being given to the people who are not experiencing it. Because of the way that war works, there's so much like bureaucratic movement and like logistics and stuff like that. You're not really following the actual theater, right? You're not following, you know what I mean? Like your enemy is those people over there. It's not necessarily like you know what's going on. With sports, we've like extrapolated the values of those things, the drama and the narratives and all that stuff, and then also like the tribalism, but we've removed it from like a violent, like as much as we can, from like a violent exercise.